A system is a structure, but a structure without a foundation will not survive. The architecture we built in the last episode, the floor, the trigger, the binary metric, the scope of effort, the written protocol, can keep a behavior alive through almost any conditions. But there is one question the architecture alone cannot answer. Why keep going? The answer is not motivation. Motivation is an intermittent emotional state with no fixed schedule. The answer is identity. When the system becomes an expression of who you are, rather than a list of things you do, consistency is no longer a battle. It is a default. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercise and Consistency, from fitness to flourishing. This is the final episode of 3 on architectural consistency. In the first episode, number 348, we established the distinction between routines and systems. In yesterday's, number 349, we built the system, 5 components, each addressing a specific failure point. Today, we integrate the system into identity so that consistency becomes not something you chase, but something you express as you move through the world. There is a popular model of personal development called be, do, have. First, be the kind of person who succeeds. Then, do what that person does. Then, have the results. The sequence sounds logical. In practice, it's not only weak, it's harmful. It treats identity as a prerequisite for action. But you cannot think your way into a new identity any more than you can think your way into becoming strong enough to squat heavier weight. Identity, like physical strength, is a consequence of repeated action. The actual sequence is do, be, have. You train consistently and long enough that disciplined becomes an accurate description of you. You didn't declare it. You demonstrated it. Action creates identity. Identity stabilizes behavior, and the results emerge downstream. The system, when enacted, is the do. The 5 components are how you act. And when you act consistently over time, the be emerges. You do not wake up one morning as a disciplined person and then start training. You train, and gradually, the person who trains is who you are. There is no becoming. There is only being, expressed in the present moment of enacted choice. Character is the retrospective pattern of past choices, never a fixed state, and definitely not the result of merely declaring who you are. The system needs a container, a defined cycle with a fixed starting line and a fixed review date. Without a container, the system drifts. Small exceptions become larger exceptions. The protocol shifts based on mood. The trainer, system 2, the conscious agentic aspect of the brain, becomes inconsistent. And the student, system 1, the non-conscious automatic aspect of the brain, receives conflicting data. I use an 84-day cycle, 12 weeks. The research on exercise adherence supports this window. The sharpest spike in dropout occurs between weeks 6 and 10. By day 90, roughly half of all people who start a new exercise program have quit entirely. But those who survive past the 3-month mark have an 80% probability of remaining active a year later. 84 days gets you past the inflection point. past the point where novelty has worn off and the new behavior is still fragile, past the point where most people quit. And once you are through that window, the behavior has begun to stabilize because the neural pathways have had enough consistent input to begin solidifying. The commitment is simple. Write the protocol once. Lock it for 84 days. Execute without negotiation. Review only at the end of the cycle, not within it. The loop continues. Observe, compare against the standard, act, receive feedback, adjust, repeat. But the major course corrections and adjustments happen between cycles, not during them. The architecture keeps the behavior alive. The container gives it time to stabilize, but there is one more layer beneath both. Without it, the system eventually drifts regardless of how well it is designed. That layer is your values. I've talked about this all the way back in episode 34, the consistency that ensures consistency. There's a distinction between consistent behavior and consistent living of your values. Behavioral consistency is what you do. Values consistency is why you keep doing it when the reasons to stop accumulate. When your system is aligned with what you genuinely value, the question, why keep going, answers itself. If you value your health, the exercise system is not a chore you endure. It's an expression of who you are. If you value presence with your family, the system that protects your evening time is not a restriction. It is a reinforcement of your deepest commitments. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus, the ancient Stoic teacher, organized his entire philosophy around 3 disciplines. And the first was the discipline of desire. Train yourself to want only what is within your control. When your desires are aligned with reality, you are free. When they are pinned to externals, you are a slave to whoever controls those externals. And if no one controls them, it comes down to random chance. Align the system with your values and consistency becomes self-sustaining. The behavior flows from your values rather than fighting against your impulses every morning. The system is not something you have to do. It's something that makes sense to do because it reflects who you choose to be when you exercise virtuous self-control. Think of the structure as a building. What you see from the street are the actions, the individual choices, the single workouts, the one completed protocol. They are visible. They are measurable. They are what other people notice. But they are also the furthest element from the ground. They sit at the top of the structure. And anything that sits at the top depends on everything beneath. Directly beneath the actions are the routines, the specific sequences you execute day to day. The what do I do next that makes action possible. Beneath the routines is the system, the architecture, the 5 components that ensure the behavior keeps happening when conditions deteriorate. The floor, the trigger, the binary metric, the scope of effort, the written protocol. This is the load-bearing structure. Without it, the routines and actions that sit upon it have nothing to reinforce them. And providing support to the entire system, at the very bottom, extending deep into the ground, is the foundation. Your principles and your values. What you genuinely believe matters. What you are unwilling to compromise on. The system rests on this. If the foundation shifts, the architecture cracks. If the foundation is solid, the system can weather almost any storm. Most people start at the top. They focus on actions and routines. They build a morning sequence, a workout plan, a productivity checklist without asking what architecture will hold it up or what foundation it rests on. Then life disrupts the sequence and the whole thing collapses because there was nothing underneath it. Start at the bottom. Clarify the foundation. Build the architecture on top of it. The routines and actions will follow. You don't want to be fighting yourself every morning for the rest of your life. And you won't if you are regularly designing a structure that makes the fight unnecessary. The body does not wake up and decide what needs doing. The systems and subsystems are in place. They run because the architecture demands it, and because the architecture is aligned with the organism's most important goal, survival. The system that is your life, aligned with your values and standards of personal excellence, can reach the same status. Consistency need no longer be a daily struggle. It can be the default output of a structure that you, as the architect, have designed to produce it. When you're ready to turn consistency from an idea into a solid system, start your day one inside the ACT Score Challenge. That's it for today. Catch you next time.